is using its bailout money. He flew Air Force One, and yet somehow Air Canada still lost his luggage. And finally, the NDP insists on 15 minutes with the Obama cutout. And that's the front page. Hockey skates.
Yeah, one of the few things you can do?
Yeah, this one, and so I was coming here to race, and I thought, oh, at least I'll be able to skate for the first time in my life. I'll be doing some event, and I won't look like a complete idiot. And now you've got me in these. Okay, give me a little lesson. These don't feel... of a 6-hour event. Continuing its commitment to reality programming, the CBC presents a new series from the creators of The Week the Women Went. It's The Week the Cable Went. 5 families are stripped of their cable service and they are given nothing.
know.
That's a CD that I
It is, yeah.
We need more people.
Just, but I see different people. Different.
I missed Carrie.
Oh.
Don't tell us.
Sorry, don't wait till it's too late, right?
That's right.
That's one thing who I think. Everybody knows that you think I should go. I've been around too long. Pardon? That note for some fundraisers, I know. I'll be passing it on to.
Yeah, thank you. So I got this here.
Part of it.
Yeah, of course.
Pardon? Yeah. What?
There's a lot of like.
Good jokes. There's got to be
Sounds good.
better places to be.
There's a live mic staff. No, I can't say nothing during this.
So who, that's special for you.
Yeah, you go around and you have to.
Special for you. Nobody else has gotten one except you.
Pass it back.
Doesn't sound that fun. Women. She's just playing.
The power to build lately.
I haven't begun.
Is it possible to rearrange that? Oh, I've got enough seats, sorry.
I don't know what the hell wrong with that system in there. It's burnt out or something. Yeah. They're tested every Monday morning.
Minutes.
Pardon?
You test it in the morning and it works till.
Did anybody think to plug it in?
We unplugged it and plugged it 3 times.
Turn it off and turn it back.
Got a little
Known as
fuse.
reboot.
You
No,
should
it's
know.
not
You should
this
never
one.
turn it
It's
off.
the computer.
It's probably a $1.20 fuse that I just don't know where it is.
Okay.
We have to turn that over towards it.
Past my bedtime.
Shouldn't have to.
Rick's still in here hoping he's going to pass something.
Does anybody who wants a chair have a chair? Is anyone else in the hallway that we can find extra seats for?
Okay, we're all comfortable? Well, as comfortable as we can be under the circumstances. I will call the meeting back to order. And to those people who didn't hear the earlier announcement, our apologies for the late start. We had a long committee meeting this afternoon, and our last agenda item didn't end as quickly as we hoped it would. And then we had a technical difficulty in the main council chambers. So to those at home, we've moved into here so that you'll be able to hear the meeting and watch the meeting progress. It won't be exactly the same as a normal meeting, but this is how our committee meetings get handled, so it should work.
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item is the minutes of the regular council meeting held Monday, July 7th.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Nicholson, second by Councillor Asmussen. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item two is recommendations from the council and committee meeting held Monday, July 7th. This is item 2.6 and concerns issues on district energy for the Burquitlam neighbourhood. The committee's recommendations that council does not support policies that include the city using its regulatory powers to mandate connection of buildings to district energy systems in the city of Coquitlam, and to allow private sector establishment of district energy systems if they can work without the city using its regulatory powers to mandate connection policies. Second.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Where are the minutes of that committee, council and committee meeting?
The minutes are not. The minutes are not here for receipt because they were approved this afternoon at the council
course they were,
committee
that's
meeting
right.
itself. So
Got
it's
it.
part of
Thank you.
council's agenda there. We just
And
reprint
then we
them
have to
here.
approve the actions taken. Got it.
Right. So item 3 is minutes of the Multiculturalism Advisory Committee meeting of Wednesday, June 18th. Recommendation to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Sikora. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 is fourth and final reading of Election Administration Procedures Bylaw number 4504 and Bylaw Notice Enforcement Amendment Bylaw number 4507. Staff recommendations that council give fourth and final reading to Election Administration and Procedures Bylaw number 4504 and fourth and final reading to Bylaw Notice Enforcement Amendment Bylaw number 4507.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, second by Councillor Asmundson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 5 is fourth and final reading of sign amendment bylaw number 4485 and bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 4488. Staff recommendations that council give fourth and final reading to sign amendment bylaw number 4485 and fourth and final reading to bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 4488.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Oops, Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. You know, it says here, the intent of the bylaw enforcement amendment bylaw number 4488, you know, and it says to introduce additional staff positions. How many extra staff positions are you thinking of as far as this bylaw is concerned? What are we looking at as far as total package? Whoever is on bylaws.
No. I think it's to identify the existing staff positions that have responsibility over the sign bylaw, not to
No,
hire new
it
staff.
says is to introduce additional staff positions.
The,
Yeah. Mr. Clerk, who wrote the report?
the chair is correct. What it means is it's expanding those people who have the authority or accountability, responsibility to enforce those bylaws. There's no new positions. It's just people who are existing now have this power to enforce it.
So the existing staff will do it.
Yes.
Not some
There's no-
additional.
there are no
So
additional
this is, the way it's written, it looked like extra positions. Okay, thank you.
It's a good point. It's a confusion. It's the increasing of the list of existing staff that oversee this particular bylaw, not increasing the existing staff. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 6 is development variance permit authorization for 763 Miller Avenue. Before reading the staff recommendation, I would call upon the mayor to ask for speakers.
Are there any speakers for this item? A little mini public hearing that we do. Come step forward, please.
Hi, Don Violet with the Burquitlam Community Association. Just curious if you've looked in the neighborhood to find out how many illegal quadplexes there already are. I personally know of two right near one that's proposed, and you can tell that by the amount of garbage that's out. Now they're having to struggle to find a place to put the garbage. This new garbage thing has put a lot of people in pickle, and we're already finding garbage in the neighborhoods because they don't have an address to put a garbage can out. So do you already know how many illegal quadplexes are within, say, even 500 meters, even 100 meters of this house? There's a lot. Thank you.
Councillor Reid.
Are you talking about some of the duplexes that have suites in the bottom that are now fourplexes?
Or even houses that have been turned into at least fourplexes that really don't even look like were duplexes to begin with. And dog issues, et cetera. We've had anger dog issues in one, which is just part of being that close together. But we're just asking before you look at having 15 quadplexes on one road, are you actually looking at that, or how many are there before you add more? That's my question.
Do we have addresses or access to addresses? I constantly do this as I go through the neighborhood, and without an address, apparently staff only goes on complaint, and I put complaints in.
Tough position to be in, and I'll tell you because I had to track down people that were putting garbage behind my fence so that I would deal with it. I had to go and track them down and knock on the door because the little kid's drawings in it that I could find out who it was. And the father was angry at the kid. So I didn't even want to go knock on that door and say, here's your garbage, because I was afraid the kid might get beat because he was very angry. And much less, knowing these people barely have 2 nickels to rub together, do I want to call City Hall and say this is an illegal suite and have them out on their keister or something.
Gotcha.
So it's a tough position to be in. I'm asking if the city has a way to know this, because I don't think we're doing those people as well, ones that are already there, any favors by putting more in if it's already to that point.
Okay, well, I thank you for the question. If this gets approved, these 4 units will have 4 utility bills and 4 garbage cans and 4 green waste cans because they're official legal units, dwelling units. It's pretty much the only way we can really deal with the illegal suite issue, whether it's one illegal suite in a single-family home that doesn't meet our standards and therefore isn't legal, or 2 or 3, or in case of duplexes, suites in the basement, is through the complaint process or accidentally finding it. They're really difficult to deal with, and every community wrestles with that. And one of the big issues is parking. But one of the big issues is the one you're dealing with is the fact that if it's an illegal suite, it doesn't have garbage collection, and so they'll quite often put it in a Safeway bag and tuck it in a garbage can in our parks as they're on their way to work, or they'll put it behind the fence. This won't be that issue because these are 4 people that'll have trouble filling up their garbage can probably because they each get their own garbage can.
And even the schools. But my point is, we already have that problem on that street. I can say, I know for certain, I know people that are in an illegal suite less than 2 doors away from that one that's being proposed. Do you already have a list of the quadplexes that you allow? And is there ever any way that we can try to limit the illegal ones without putting more in the neighborhoods already? Because we do have parking problems and issues on that street alone. So,
Well, I appreciate it. We certainly are trying to manage it. This will never be that, though, because we're actually, with this kind of project, we're making it so you can't put it in.
That was my point. I think we're putting more in a place where it already has a lot that's there. And you've got 4 more garbage cans to stuff their stuff in now. This is a bonus for them. And not much less the schools, because they're still going to schools. By the way, that's where they took their garbage.
Yeah, no, I understand.
We need to ask Bylaws to take a drive down that street.
Talking about is in planning for this, as in the staff recommending it with knowing how many quadplexes are there. The density that already is. That was really my
Well, this is planning staff recommending, and you're talking about an engineering staff issue. This one won't make the engineering issue worse. It'll actually make it better, as you point out. So I recognize the challenge you're facing.
Thank you.
I'll drive down.
Okay, appreciate it. Any other speakers to this item? We've got one in the back. No, he's not. Okay, come forward, sir.
Guys, my name is Mike Jetskowski. I live at 763 Miller. That's
wonderful.
I didn't really catch the address of the last speaker.
He didn't give his address, but he speaks quite often. I didn't ask him. Do you want to give your address?
640 Clark Road.
There you go.
Okay. There were some things that I disagree with, some things that I agree with, but I think what we're talking about here is a variance on the frontage of these units, whether you guys want them parallel or staggered. I think that's really what we're after here.
Yep. No, I tried to bring that home, but I recognize that there's other issues that some people will want to address sometimes. And
Yeah, no, that's fine. I personally haven't had the problems that the gentleman has. I've lived there for over 9 years. Never really had a big garbage issue on my, where I live on Miller.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
That's about it.
Okay. On the development variance permit, that's the permission to dig a bigger gap in between the front back units and Councilor Square.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. You know, I see we're going to do tandem parking for 4 spots, and the parking is from the lane. I think that we're starting to stretch the development in the city to where we have tandem parking. I know it's a variance permit.
And the variance permit is on the front.
Yeah, on the front, yeah, but I'm talking about parking. Yeah, again, you know.
But the parking isn't being varied.
I know not that being varied, but I'm saying that there's tandem parking, which to me creates a problem to begin with. The parking is off a lane, and to me, I'm just really concerned of what's really happening, that we're starting to get tandem parking all over the place. There's one on Dancy Street coming up tonight, I believe it is, tandem parking, and to me, I think we should eliminate tandem parking. It's a problem to begin with, who's gonna move the car where, what time of the day, or what time in the morning, what time in the afternoon, or what time in the evening, so, Mr. Violet mentioned about garbage. I'll tell you, probably this is the wrong time to bring it up.
I'm pretty sure it is, but I don't know how to bring it up.
But I noticed that also, since our new garbage bylaw came in, pickup, there's all kinds of garbage on boulevards,
Councilor
not
Segura,
the streets.
you mind if the front setback is shortened?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, good. Okay, anybody else? Seeing none. All in favor?
Need a close.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to close the, close. Are there any discussion related to any of this issue? Seeing none.
I'll read out the staff recommendation.
Please do.
Staff recommendations that council approve the signing and sealing of this DVP and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute it.
Moved by Councilor Nicholson, seconded by Councilor Wilson. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimously.
Nope.
Oops, Councilor Segura is against the front setback.
Next item, item 7, concerns a temporary use permit renewal authorization for a temporary homeless shelter at 2601 Spuraway Avenue. This is the Coquitlam Alliance Church, and 1636 Regan Avenue, which is the Calvary Baptist Church. I'd call upon the mayor to call for speakers.
Another mini public hearing on this item, or are there any speakers to this item? Any speakers to this item? This is temporary use permits for 2 churches. Any speakers at all? Any speakers that want to speak to this? Seeing none. Please step forward, Mr. Teason.
Good evening. I wasn't going to speak, but apparently staff has received a
Name and address.
Rob Thiessen. I represent Hope for Freedom Society. My address is at Fort Langley. Do you want that one?
We have it.
Okay.
We know how to find it.
Yeah, all right. There you go. Yeah, I represent the applicant. The reason I'm going to speak briefly is that staff received a complaint email or an email posed to this particular temporary use permit, and it was regarding concerns around increased crime in the area. Just so you know, over the years we've monitored crime stats around all of the churches that have hosted our homeless initiative, and we have no incidents of any increased crime. In fact, the statistics show that since we started a shelter program in the Tri-Cities, there's a certain level of survival crime that's actually gone down in the entire community. So our efforts to not only help homeless off the streets, it's also had an impact on crime. The other thing I wanted to note is that my phone number, personal phone number, and email, and that sort of information is out there for people in the communities to contact us if they have any concerns or complaints. And we have not received any complaints on any of our shelter programs since 2008. I understand staff at the city also have not received any written complaints or communications. So I believe we have the program fairly well in hand. We've been at it for a while, and we're not altering anything in this temporary use permit. We intend on operating in the same fashion we have in the past and using the same policy and procedures. And the other thing about this year, as the same as last year, is that we are picking homeless people up at certain muster points and delivering to the church in the evening. And they go straight from the van into the church, and in the morning they go straight from the church into the van and are distributed back to the muster points. So opportunity to loiter in the neighborhood is minimal, in fact non-existent.
Okay, well, it does remind me of we all received those same emails before the original one was approved and before the first reapproval because people were still unfamiliar with the process. I remember answering one of them saying, ma'am, if your car was broken into last night, it was more likely that it was me that did it than that it was someone that was in the basement of that church because they weren't allowed out. So thank you very much. Any questions on that? Nope. Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers to this item? Are there any other speakers to this item? Third and last time, are there any other speakers to this item? We'll call this item closed. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff recommendations that Council approve a 2-year renewal to temporary use permits for 2601 Spuraway Avenue and 1636 Regan Avenue to allow for the operation of a temporary rotating homeless shelter.
So moved.
2, waive the temporary use permit application fees at $5,000. And 3, authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute these renewals on behalf of the city.
Second.
The battle to be the one that moves. Moved by Councillor Rasmussen, seconded by Councillor Hodge. Councillor Reid.
I would wonder if perhaps one of this, Mr. Stevlin or someone could give this person a call, and if there is something that they're really seriously concerned about, perhaps maybe Mr. Dumont, and refer it over to the RCMP if they want to visit.
I think Carl will probably do something there over in planning. We'll get this worked out. Anybody else? Yes. Councillor Wilson.
Was this the only correspondence we received from the newspaper ad?
Yes.
Great. Good. Yes, our community is quite used to this process, and it's about time now that this will be the last year. Anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Next item, item 8.
And with our thanks.
The next item, item 8, concerns proposed citywide official community plan amendments to the Northeast Coquitlam Area Plan, Smiling Creek Neighbourhood Plan, and Lower Hyde Creek Neighbourhood Plan. We have introductory comments by the GM of Planning and Development. The staff recommendations that Council receive this report for information and direct staff to advise the applicant to conduct further public consultation with the community and consider revisions to the land use amendments to respond to public concerns received through the city's early consultation opportunity required under Section 879 of the Local Government Act.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Hodge. I'll just say a couple of comments myself. This is a city-owned parcel located at the southeast corner of David and Riley on Burke Mountain. And it's the proposals were to, or rather this report is to reflect that School District 43 no longer wants the property for the site of a middle school, and to reflect a changing housing mix on this parcel as a result of comments received from the Neighbourhood and Community Association during the city's early consultation opportunity required under Section 879 of the Local Government Act. The Planning Department staff recommend that Council direct them to advise the applicant, which is also the city of Coquitlam. The applicant, the owner is the city, to conduct further public consultation with the community and consider revisions to the land use proposals to respond to public concerns. This, from my perspective, is an example where our City Strategic Initiative Department, which manages the city's land portfolio, is being treated by the city's planning department as any other applicant would be treated. In the end, in fact, in this case, they're being treated a bit tougher than other applicants. In the end, the city can't force the school district to construct a middle school on the property, so it's likely that we will need to find another land use for that portion of the site. However, if Council accepts the staff recommendation, the proposal will not be put on next week's public hearing agenda. As originally proposed, the proposal will be subject to further public consultation with the community, primarily the community up in Burke Mountain. And so we thank the community for being involved in that process, and we want to let everyone know that that's the vote that's about to take place. Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Your Worship. Excellent commentary. I'm not sure I can add much to that, sir.
Well, most of it comes out of your staff report, actually.
Well spoken. Just very briefly, Your Worship, as you indicated, this is an official community plan amendment application. It's been prepared by one department, Strategic Initiatives, received and reviewed by my department, Planning and Development. Because it's an OCP amendment, it goes through what is called Section 879. That Section 879 of the Local Government Act calls for early and ongoing consultation. That took place. We got some feedback, more than feedback, a little pushback. So based on that, and this isn't unique, what we've urged the applicant to do, and we want to come forward to report this out to Council, because it's really two arms of the city that are undertaking this, are involved in this this initiative, that they need to maybe rethink, consider what the feedback is, and to have further consultation around this application. So We do this on occasion, rare occasion. There was one last year involving a school site. We pushed back on that as well. So when these sort of significant applications get to this point, we obviously want to report that out to council, make sure that we're on the right track. And so that's the purpose of today's report. And we're looking for council support in urging the applicant to go back and rethink and re-consult on this proposal.
Okay. Mr. McIntyre, Mr. Stebbins.
The only thing that I would add to that is reiterate what you said, is that the school board has historically designated more sites than they've needed, because originally their plan was to have more smaller schools. Now their plan is to have larger school sites, and they don't need the 7 sites they had originally designated. They only need 4, and this is not a preferred site. Having said that, we do recognize the ongoing concern in the community, and as part of the ongoing consultation that we're going to do, we're planning on working with the school board to try to make progress on their preferred site, which is a different site.
Okay. There you go. Councillor Wilson.
I just wanted to make a few comments. I looked at our plan online, and it showed proposed fire hall site, and I was surprised at the proposed, because the fire hall is almost finished being built. But below that, it said middle school and community center site. And I think, if we think that there's ever a chance that some of these things might change, I think we should always put proposed or possible or suggested, because a lot of people made very big financial decisions based on the fact that there was a good chance. Online, though, it's got proposed there, right? So I think we need to do that. Also, I just want to really, make sure that the developers that are selling the townhouses and houses and developments like this really try to make it clear to people that, again, it's a proposed site. It's not a definite site. So that we can, be as clear as we can with people. Then I think we'll have less problems. The other thing was when we asked for feedback on the changes, I think if we were able to provide a little bit of context, contextual information at the same time, it might have helped people understand exactly why we were doing it, and maybe there wouldn't have been the same degree of the pushback. So those are just my suggestions.
Absolutely. Okay. Motion is to direct more consultation. All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously.
Next item, item 9, concerns the proposed Burquitlam-Lougheed Neighbourhood Plan Public Advisory Group. Staff recommendations that council appoint persons, groups outlined in attachment 1 of the report to this public advisory group.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Hodge. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. This is a great group. I know someone. This is a great group of people, and we should get some really good input. And I hope, and I keep saying this when we go to some of these groups, that council members will stay away. It's not our place. Staff can't tell us that, as Jim giggles. But we know that when a councillor gets in the room, it changes the whole atmosphere in the room. These are a whole bunch of super intelligent people that we have sitting on this committee. This is the public's turn to come in and advise us. We get to look at it at a later date. And this is so, so important that they are unfettered in their choices and in their conversation. And I just wanted to bring that up, because otherwise we get skewed things and we get, oh, well, we felt we had to say this or we felt we had to say that. So hopefully we can all behave. Thank you. I said it for you, Jim.
I have never heard Jim say that.
That's because I have to say it for him.
And this super intelligent group is opposed to the super intelligent group represented here.
Well, that's to be thought about a bit.
Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
The next item, item 10, concerns Pinetree Way Enhancement Project. And details on the light column, street markers, and the branches. We have introductory comments by the General Manager of Engineering and Public Works, and the staff recommendations that Council approve the concept for the light columns, street markers, and the branches on Pinetree Way as shown in the report.
Whose report is this? Okay. There we go.
Your Worship,
Mr. Diazegi.
Your Worship, as you know, the Pinetree Enhancement project has been underway since early last year. Council and the public already had opportunities to see the conceptual design, most recently on May 12th, when Council approved the principles of the staff-recommended urban design concept. As we all know, the Pinetree Way Enhancement project is a very large, expensive, and time-consuming project, and for certain components, long lead times are anticipated. These components include the light columns, the street markers, and the so-called branches. Details on these elements are included in our council report for your review and discussion. Staff is seeking your approval of the concept for these components so that we can continue with detailed design, making a timely project delivery possible.
Thank you. Are we on the floor yet?
It has not been moved or seconded.
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Asmunsen, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? What? Does that mean you're opposed or you're... What?
Are we having a discussion about it?
Yeah, I waited.
Oh, sorry,
Councillor
I
Wilson.
was reading. Sorry, okay.
No worries.
I hope I'm not sounding like a Scrooge or the Grinch here, but I was a little bit surprised at the cost of some of these things, and I almost feel like we're in a position where we're being encouraged to support it. And if I'd known the cost of some of these things earlier on, I would have spoken out against them before we went so far down the road. I think they're beautiful. I like the light columns, but at $300,000 each, it just seems like a ton of money. And then when we add an extra $185,000 a year for maintenance on all of these things, it's so I know we want, a beautiful streetscape. I know we want it to be safe and inviting. I just think it's a lot of money that we're spending at a time where we hear constantly that people don't want their taxes to go up. I don't know what the answer is, but
Well, this isn't going to raise taxes.
This is attachment 5 he's looking at, yeah.
Well, I understand the table on page 3 that outlines the sources of the funding, and most of it's development revenue.
put that somewhere else, though.
Well, it's actually targeted development revenue, so it's meant to the development industry funding the improvements in the neighborhood they're developing in. So. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mentioned it earlier this afternoon. I agree with Councillor Wilson. The fact is that, there's, and I noticed that on page 3, we're even dipping into casino fund for $4.7 million for this project. That is, something that really bothers me. Certainly, as Councillor Wilson mentioned, it looks beautiful and everything else, but frankly, it is pretty ritzy. I know when it first was brought up, $14 million, there was outcry by the general public in the local paper that $14 million, and I can see the sidewalks, I can see the trails being put in, bike paths, and a few other things. But there's some of the things that we're doing, and we're really digging real deep to spend taxpayers' money. And maybe it sounds a little vicious coming from me as far as looking to how we should spend money. But I'll tell you what, I don't think that for one reason that you go to any other city that's got SkyTrain going in and they're spending that kind of money for having these lights put up and everything else, I mean, it just, to me, I don't think the taxpayers of the community are ready for those kind of expenditures while they're fighting to try and keep the family, family alive and keep them fed, and mortgages and toll bridges, and now the SkyTrain wants $7 billion for expenditures and everything else. It just goes on and on and on, to a point where the taxpayers are saying, I think enough is enough, and it should give us a clear message. It looks beautiful and all that, but do we really, really need it? Can we get by without spending that kind of money? And I'm not talking about benches, I'm not talking about sidewalks, I'm not talking about landscaping, I'm talking about just straight lighting that's going in there. That really, frankly, what is it going to do? Is it going to make the city look more beautiful? Not at all. So those are the things that really, really concern me. I just, I spoke about it before, I spoke about it this afternoon, and speaking about it again. That the taxpayers are just saying, hey, when are we going to stop spending? And it's $14 million. That's not a chump change. So, I've got difficulties with that, Mayor.
Brent?
Well, this has been to us a number of times. We've had a couple presentations on the columns, the whole design of it, and most people I've talked to have been very encouraged by the design, making sure that our key entryway to our city center is something that will be attractive, it'll be usable, and it'll enhance our area. I've been around the world in different cities, and to spend a bit of money on a key entranceway into your street area enhances the whole community within that area. I understand the question about the light columns. There's two of them. They're 50 feet high. They're iconic at both ends to help signify and bring a different look to the area. You take that out, you still got $13.4 million on the other stuff. I think it's worth the investment. I've talked to a lot of people in the community, and they don't want to have a SkyTrain looking like in Burnaby, where it's just concrete and ugly. There's nothing there. They've said for a long time, if you're going to do this, soften it, make it look better. And this is all coming out of other funds. This isn't coming out of a tax increase. The taxpayers, we've been very good, and casino funds are to be used for various projects. We use casino funds, and this, to me, is a good project to use it for. I mean, we're looking at creating something here for the long term in the vision and look of our area. And I'm going to support this. I think it's been in front of council a number of times. And staff have said on the maintenance figures, they're still working on that. That's in the report to refine them and hopefully bring them down some more. And they're going to work on that. But I think the whole concept of what we want along the street in our city center, our vibrancy of this area, we want something that's iconic. I talk about pushing developers from our iconic-looking buildings to create the skyline, to create the plazas in these areas, to make it a walkable, vibrant area that people feel good about and want to be down in this area. So when I saw this plan, and it's been, I think this is it's come to us at least twice, it's gone to our different committees. I'm going to support this. I think it is what is needed as we move forward along this main corridor street. It's working both sides of the road. And I think staff has worked on mitigating some of the costs by dealing with development on other sides, especially where the CIBC in that area is, not taking out the stuff. They're leaving it for the time being and letting redevelopment work in those areas. So I think they're working on those other areas to help mitigate the costs. It's in the report. But I do think we need some of those things there to give it that unique look. Thank you.
Well, I've always supported this project. This was one where we were trying to focus a bunch of attention on our main street, our transit street. This is many communities struggle with their main street that has transit down the middle of it. Richmond's got some issues. There are other issues across the region, and I know Burnaby wishes they had spent more time, I suspect, on the challenges associated with their SkyTrain line and the missed opportunities. So we
went forward with a plan that was, and this is the same budget, it has never changed, to use development revenue primarily, although also some casino revenue, some really trying to get the people that will benefit from the improvements along this street to fund them. And that's largely what is happening now. The improvements will benefit the property owners, the development industry that developing along that street, and they're funding the improvements that will benefit them. And I think that's a perfectly legitimate perspective. One of the local newspapers actually did a poll way back when this was first came out, and the poll was worded wrongly. It said, would you support using tax dollars to do this kind of improvements for beautification and safety related to the underneath the SkyTrain along there? And the large majority of readers said yes, they would support it, even using tax dollars. Now, we're not using any tax dollars. We're actually using tiny token tax dollars. Largely, it's the capital dollars associated with the casino, but even more than that, much, much more than that, is the dollars associated with the development industry. And I think that's entirely appropriate. I think we'd be irresponsible to not spend a good amount of money trying to make sure that our city center and its interactions, its interface with the largest capital investment in our city center, that is the SkyTrain line, is as good, as pedestrian friendly, as inviting and as safe as possible. And I think this achieves that. Can we fudge around the corners and try and figure out the best things to do? I think that's entirely appropriate. I actually like this plan. I think it's nice. There's some details of it I want to weigh in a little bit on, and I intend to examine it a little bit further. But on balance, the plan that's before us, I support wholeheartedly in principle, and wholeheartedly for what it'll achieve for the residents of Coquitlam. Councillor Reid.
Well, I think it's a little hefty in price too. We're going to have to come up with a really good designer name so someone can sign something on the pavement, I guess, just to make it worth its money. But, you know, for years I've been harping on the wow factor. I guess you can all go back to me 10 years ago when I said I want wow. Don't come into my city if you're not going to build something wow, something smashing, something lovely. So now we have this great monolith that's coming into the city. And right around it, we have some of the most expensive property in our city. We have Moorgard, of course, Coquitlam Centre. But on the other side, kitty corner to them, where the car lot is, there's a vacant lot. And if I want the wow factor there, then I'm going to have the wow factor right smack there where it's supposed to be. So that what the city is offering is the wow factor to developers coming in. We have Sunridge Square, and the other square we have two Pinetree right beside it. They will be redeveloping. They're all one story now. The property is way too expensive just to have one story commercial on it. So these shopping centers will redevelop too. And so if we want high class, first quality, then we're putting this in the area, and that's going to attract high class, first quality. So this is money that we got from Moorgard, for one, and a lot of the other developers saying, if we're going to go into SkyTrain, we're going to make it the best SkyTrain station and area there ever was. It's going to be first class. It's going to be something to be proud of, and hopefully crime-free, because our police officers will also have an area there. So I think we'll get the money back in spades when all those properties around this area redevelop, which I can tell you will be, when I say momentarily, I guess that's sort of within 10 years in a city. Thank you. I wish the price tag were lower, though.
No. Neil.
Thank you. So, well, I'll put everybody's minds at rest right away by saying I'm going to vote in favor of this. I support it. But I have some reservations, and I didn't do a great job of dealing with them earlier. We got proposals, we got lots of pictures, we saw 14 million. I looked at the whole proposal for this and thought, boy, this looks great. There's a fantastic amount of stuff being done for only $14 million. But I don't know how much pavement costs and all the rest. You know, it just seemed like a reasonable number to me, and always been able to rely on staff for numbers like that, and I still do. With what I got, got it again at the end of last week. I started looking at what I would call the public art, the light. I was going to call them light poles. That's definitely not the right word. The light columns, particularly the two large ones, the branches. Those are items of public art in my mind, and that's one of the reasons that they produce the wow factor. And they do a great job of it, but I don't know where or if any of this has been tested against the public art policy that we have. As chair of the Arts and Culture Committee, vice chair of the Evergreen Line Public Art Task Force, I'm very aware of the level of talent that we have available in the city to bring in and help us make decisions like this, to jury stuff. The work of the Evergreen Line Public Art Task Force people will see fairly soon, and I think you'll be excited, and I'll think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the cost. Which, of course, nothing for us because the province is paying for it, but we got a lot for not a lot. So those are the things that I'm going to be looking toward the next time we have these kinds of projects. And I hope we have these kinds of projects again pretty soon, because the notable thing here is Burquitlam, which is becoming just as much a major entry point to our city. And I think right now, we don't know quite what's going to happen right around the station and the redevelopment of Morgard properties, the plaza. And so it would be too early to design a streetscape because it has to fit in with what's around it. But we need to do that. We need to do just as good a job as we've done here. We need to make that a real landmark so you know you've arrived in Coquitlam. And maybe you're not even headed for the city center. Maybe when you've arrived in Burquitlam, you arrived. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Benita, we'll start with Benita.
I just have a level of discomfort just about not knowing the maintenance costs. I know that the installation and the purchase of these themselves is not tax dollars, but I'm going to think that the maintenance over time will be tax dollars. And when we're dealing with electricity and some of the things that we can't control, I just want to get a little bit of a more comfortable feel for what the maintenance might be on a yearly basis and where the maintenance will come from. Will it come out of which pots of money, I guess? Is it tax dollars or is it something else?
It'll probably be the same budget as operating costs of the rest of the street, I think.
Yes, Your Worship.
It is in the report.
It is in the report.
Mr. Dizaki.
Yeah, we have looked at the maintenance items, and these are listed on attachment 2. These are the additional maintenance items that's going to be needed after the enhancement project is completed. And the costing is in line with our previous experience, with the exception of a couple of items. These items are the electrical items, like the column, lighting columns and similar, what we are talking about it. Those items, the maintenance to a degree will have to be contracted out because we don't have the in-house capability and equipment to do that. Many, if not all of these lighting elements can be programmed and the programming can be changed, but we will do the programming in-house. And we estimate that for all the maintenance items listed on attachment 2, the cost is going to be in the vicinity of $180,000 per year. And we anticipate that this maintenance money will come from the regular operating budget.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, so this $185,000 also includes any electrical maintenance that happen. It's not just the keeping the furniture clean and...
No, it includes the electrical parts. Everything what's listed on this attachment.
Okay, yeah, it's in the bottom, right in the report. So. Anybody else?
I appreciate you letting me speak again, and again, I'm I'm not against having wow factor, right? I think we have to have something nice. You know, in response to Councillor Asmussen, yes, this has come before us, but it was never costed out, right? So that's the thing that I'm struggling with a little bit. And you know, this afternoon we had somebody come before council talking to us about housing in the Burquitlam area, right? And we listened to him, and he made a very compelling case, but we told him, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do, right? So we're going to spend $4.7 million of casino funding on a capital project here. And I know it's against our philosophy, and I know it's a provincial and federal responsibility, but we could spend $4.7 million of casino funding on subsidized housing, right? And it would be an asset that this city has, right? So we can't keep telling people there's nothing we can do. There is something we can do. We're just making different choices, right? All we're saying to them is, I'm sorry, that's not a priority for you, right? We're trying to create a great, beautiful city. For sure, everybody wants that. But at some point, you know, we've got to look at this and say, you know, sure, a lot of this is development money, and like Councillor Reid says, you know, hopefully if we do a great job, the money will come back to us in spades. Well, if the money's going to come back to us in spades, and I hope we use some of that money in a responsible way, right? But we can't keep telling people there's nothing we can do.
You're out of order.
Why am I out of order?
Because you can't speak twice.
You let me speak twice.
No, you started without me.
You were
Anyway,
nodding.
you said you needed 1 second, you said, so I thought I would let you go.
We've got an affordable housing strategy we can use.
Well, we could spend
So
all
I'm
the
going to
money
need a motion for a second round of debate on this issue. That's
You know, Councillor Wilson spoke twice, and now with me, you need a motion by Councillor.
Councillor Wilson said he would be 1 second.
I'm sorry.
My apologies.
How do you know how long I'll be?
I should have.
I say 1 second.
Well,
You don't know, do you?
okay, you have 1 second.
No, don't worry about it. I mean, when we're talking about taxpayers' money, this is all taxpayers' money. Comes from developers, but comes to the city. It's taxpayers' money. And I remember one time when you were a council member and Mayor Wilson was a mayor, and she wanted to spend casino money on something, and I've got a cutout at home, and I'm going to bring it down for you to read it. And you were totally opposed to it. You can't use casino money for this. It's not allowed, and blah blah blah. You went on to great.
Yep, I remember the item, and I still say it was an inappropriate use of casino.
Remember the item, okay? Now we're taking $4.7 million. How much would it go for a tennis court?
This was the 1 second
How much
you
would
needed?
they go for sports facilities? That I'm going. There's my 30 seconds. Thank you.
Okay, so you want more sports facilities instead of this.
Just
Okay,
30 seconds?
okay, so
Just remember, there's a $1.6 million contingency in this, so the actual budget would be, or that comes on target is $12.4 million.
Okay. So the motion before us, approve the concept. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sikora, Wilson, and Zerillo are opposed. The motion carries.
Next item, item 11, concerns Chicago Wi-Fi Network License Agreement and Municipal Access Agreement for Telecommunications Infrastructure and Installation. Staff recommendations that council approve a grant of license generally in the form of the attached agreement to Shaw Cable Systems Limited for the deployment of Chicago Wi-Fi wireless communications facilities on or in city utility poles and facilities. Approve a municipal access agreement generally in the form of the attached for Shaw Cable Systems Limited. And 3, authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Oops, Councillor Reid.
I want, is the Shaw representative
Yes,
still here?
Yes, he is.
Where? Oh, there you are.
Come on up.
No, I just
No,
wanted,
he did.
What,
Go
you
ahead.
need him?
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to know if you have any of the little bots. The little doggy bot.
I didn't bring any of the little doggy box.
I want a dog bot, please. Thank you.
Hand those out before we vote.
She needs an enticement.
No, she doesn't.
You moved the motion.
Do you know, I know I did. I just think that they are, you know, when you sit in a place where you see all kinds of businesses move, and we've had a few restaurants that I phoned up because they just have fabulous ads, some of our local restaurants, and I just think the little bots are really cute, and the little dog bot was just perfect, because we have an animal.
They were all my idea.
Well, if we have an animal shelter, so he's welcome there anytime.
We'll talk. All in favor? Opposed?
Was I on your speakers list?
Yes, you did hit my my elbow,
why
but then
did
she
you
interrupted
treat
me with the bot thing, and I lost track of time.
Don't you think they're cute?
Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, this isn't as much fun as bots. I'm curious about the disparity between the indoor and outdoor fee. So 350 against 40 is quite a spread. And then the 40, the outdoor fee, we basically have no costs. The indoor fee, we pay the electricity for 14, you're down to 26. It's almost, why are we bothering? And the other thing is, I think some of the indoor locations are places where we already provide Wi-Fi ourselves. Is that correct?
Mr. Adams.
Through the chair. Yes, we provide Wi-Fi in all of our facilities, so this would be an additional Wi-Fi service specifically for Shaw customers. I think the way the rates worked out is largely based on the impact it would have on the city. So indoor Wi-Fi transmitter is more or less like a smoke detector. It's very small. It doesn't require a lot of maintenance. Doesn't have a lot of weight. When you put a transmitter out on a pole, then there's obviously a lot of other issues related to managing that, moving it if we have to repair the pole or paint the pole and all of those sorts of things. I think those are probably the factors that went into establishing the rate structure that the region ultimately negotiated with Shaw on behalf of all of the municipalities involved.
So I'm sorry, you said moving it if we have to?
Well, no, they would come and move it certainly at our request, and that's in the agreement, but it still does create more of an impairment for us. And obviously, they're more visible, they're larger when they're outdoors, those sorts of things.
In other words,
I'm not going to try and renegotiate the deal sitting here, Ray. Thank you.
Could we move some of the indoor ones outdoors, though?
No, but you could sit out in the rain with your iPad, Your Worship.
You done?
I'm done. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Anybody else?
Go ahead and call the question.
All in favor? All opposed? We're getting some Wi-Fi. Thank you very much.
Item 12 concerns Bylaw Notice Enforcement Amendment. Bylaw 4509, this pertains to confined animals. Staff recommendations that council give first, second, and third readings to Bylaw Notice Enforcement Amendment, confined animals, Bylaw number 4509.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Hodge.
I can't believe I beat Councillor Reed.
I'm shocked. I was waiting for Councillor Reed to move that one.
I was too.
We all paused.
We did.
Waited for you.
Sorry, in fact, I don't even remember who moved it. Do I have a mover for that?
Yes, you did have a mover for
Okay, it's
that.
all done.
I'm just upset that it's only $500. It should be $5 billion for anyone stupid enough to eat an animal in a car in the weather we've had. There you go.
Well,
She
$5
spoke.
billion is beyond the act, the limits imposed by the act. $5 billion would exceed that. Councillor Sikora
Yeah,
on the
thank you
question
very
of
much,
$5
Mayor.
billion.
You know, we seem to be going with these bylaws and fines and bylaws and fines. And, you know, understand the fact is that the animals shouldn't be left in the hot car. I understand that. But I don't think whether you put a $10,000 fine on there or a $150 fine will make any difference. I don't think it'll make a difference at all. Some people just don't understand. And that's the problem. So, you know, this business, and in here it says, because Surrey put in a $500 fine, so we should follow.
No, that wasn't the reason, actually.
But,
We
you know,
proposed this before
so
Surrey
we
did.
have a $150 fine, we're gonna up it to $500 fine, and if paid within 14 days, it'll be $400 instead of $500. And, you know, really frankly, I'll tell you what, we bylawed ourselves to death in here. Who's gonna enforce it? You know, I mean, frankly, you can't go, our bylaw enforcement officers will not be going to shopping centers, they can't. But they're not gonna go to, you know, the small malls because they can't. You know, so it's really up to the people to police themselves and everything else. So, you know, You know what, to me, I just feel that, you know what we're doing? We seem to want to somehow be up front and make a big splash. We're voting for this and blah, 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 and you can't enforce it even. You know, so, I mean, you know what, I don't think for 1 minute that by taking the fine from $150 to $500, they're going to save one animal. I don't think for 1 minute that you will. You can't prove that you will. So, I mean, you know, that's just my say. I mean, you know, it just, you know, as we go through, and like I read those bylaws that we have in 56 pages, you know, if the water runs on the street from you washing your car, you can be fined $1,000. I mean, you know, I mean, it goes on and on and on. And I'll tell you what, who's going to join? We're pretty soon going to be like a Gestapo city. And that's what's going to happen. Do I believe that animals should be saved? Of course I do. I don't, you know, but somehow that, you know, somehow the difference between $150 and $500 is going to make a difference. I don't think it will for 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I don't think that this constitutes being bylawed to death, but I'd rather that than sentencing these animals to death. And this actually came about, we had 2 calls last week. One of them was, I was notified by a resident that her daughter had found a dog in a car in Como Lake Village parking lot in the hot sun. The dog was clearly in distress, and or at least that's what the daughter had assumed. She was ready to call 911 several minutes later after having talked to her mother and talked to several other people. They couldn't figure out how to break the window. They were going to call 911, and the owner showed up and pretty much got mad at them, suggesting that this is none of their business. I suspect that we won't be able to prove that we've saved an animal here because somebody might not leave their dog, if they're not smart enough to not leave their dog in their car in the hot sun, because it's not good for the animal. At least this might make them think it's not good for their pocketbook. And if that's the only way we can do it, then that's fine. I'd much rather the fine be higher than this, but our limits under the Ben bylaw are $500. The limits under municipal ticket is $1,000. I'd be prepared to have all of our these actions proceed to municipal ticket unless there was some inadvertence or something. But this is the best we can do as a municipality in trying to enforce this, in trying to create a deterrent, and in trying to raise awareness of an issue that, despite it being on every newscast I can think of in the last several weeks during the hot days, just hasn't hit home enough yet because we still got 2 calls last week. And so I'm absolutely supportive of this. I believe it will perhaps protect an animal or 2 from this, the fate we've heard about. And I just want people to realize that this council takes this matter seriously, this community takes the matter seriously, and please don't leave your animal in a hot car. Got Greg?
Okay. Well, so, I mean, hopefully we won't have to levy a fine. Hopefully that, you know, pet owners will get the message. You know, I'm a real believer in education before enforcement. And I'm hoping that by this decision tonight that this will send a message to pet owners that they can't leave animals in hot cars. I'm hoping that the publicity from this will be as big a deterrent as the fine itself. And it's unfortunate that we live in a society where we have to levy fines to send a message. I wish we could have a higher fine. I wish that we could seize the animal, and maybe that may be options in severe, in you know, extreme cases. But I think that that this is an opportunity for us to take action. And certainly, it's an opportunity to raise awareness. And you're absolutely right. We've had a couple of incidents already this summer. You know, fortunately, they didn't go wrong. They could have gone horribly wrong. And I'm hoping that we can move this along through the first 3 readings, bring this back quickly for 4th, and we'll never know if we save an animal. But hopefully people will get the message about leaving animals in hot cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
I'm also in favor of this. I was just wondering about the criteria for applying this bylaw, and you know, it's fairly vague in terms of adequate ventilation. So I was just kind of wondering how much discretion we want to give bylaw enforcement officers if somebody, you know, leaves their animal in the car in the middle of winter with the window slightly rolled down. Is that adequate ventilation? Like, what is? I could see this being open to different interpretations.
Ms. Bradfield.
And I'm assuming it's worded this way purposely. I guess I'm just wondering the rationale behind it.
Through the chair, there is obviously some measure of discretion that needs to be applied in every case that the enforcement officers are called to or they come across in the course of their duties. What they're looking for when they look for adequate ventilation is also not only, you know, are the windows open, what time of the year is it, but what's the condition of the animal, how does the animal appear to be behaving in the car, and they do receive training around this to identify what animals in distress would look like, how they would behave, and then they will respond accordingly. So there is a measure of discretion, of course. You can't put hard and fast measures on these sorts of judgment calls.
You don't have a thermometer that you check the temperature with? No. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, there was actually an episode on Czech News last week where the film camera, or the news camera actually was on scene when the police measured the temperature using it was 150 degrees Fahrenheit, 64 degrees Celsius. That's the temperature you can bake a cake at. And there were 2 dogs, hairless dogs inside, clearly in distress, and the owner was angry when the cop broke his window. He came back to a broken window and a ticket. Only $300, but it was higher than ours. So.
Lock him in the car.
Well, I think he was also probably more embarrassed by the fact that he was on the 6 o'clock news as being a pretty pathetic, pretty poor animal guardian. Anybody else? Questions for bylaws? No. Thank you very much. The question, all in favor? Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you all.
One more.
Thank you all for that. Actually, on that point, staff have indicated that they are willing to look to the MTI ticket, which is a more complex ticket. Obviously, if the case warrants it, that's a $1,000 fine, and it would apply perhaps to those more egregious cases, and it may well be used if between now and fourth reading one of these incidents occurs. So I appreciate staff and how seriously they take their role as guardians of the animals and pets in our community. So, thank you.
Next item, item 13, concerns the Metro Vancouver Board and brief for their meeting of June 27th. Our Metro Vancouver Board representatives are available to respond to questions, and the staff recommendations that Council receive the brief for information.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Your Worship, that's the last formal item on this agenda.
Move adjournment.
We have an item here.
I have a notice of motion. Is that right, Richard? Whereas Council received a petition today requesting action urging an early resolution to the education labor dispute. Therefore, be it resolved that on behalf of the City of Coquitlam, the Mayor write a letter asking the BC government to quickly negotiate or mediate a fair deal with the hardworking teachers in our province. Moved by me, seconded by Councillor Zarrillo. Today.
I should request that, given that I stepped out of the meeting earlier today out of an abundance of caution related to the fact that my wife is a teacher, I would urge that the motion not read that the mayor write the letter, since I won't be able to participate in the matter. I won't be able to participate in the matter. It says mayor write the letter. So
Staff could write.
So that a letter be written or something.
And I think we can consider that amendment when it comes forward. It's a reasonable suggestion.
Okay, that's on the floor. Any further discussion? Any further items?
Hard work.
Can I move that we waive procedure and discuss this tonight?
I'll second that.
what the, okay, we can do it. I don't know if there's an urgency to it.
Wait,
But-
well, why don't we,
Okay,
Well, the only reason I bring that up is because next week we have a public hearing as well. You know, if we wait till next week to discuss it and it takes, you know, a few days to get the letter done, we're into August. And I think in this case, time is of the essence. I think we need to try to get things going. You know, we have a lot of teachers who live in our community, and it's hitting our local economy because they're not getting paid as well, right? So I think it's a serious matter, and I think if we can discuss it, debate it tonight, it'd be better than waiting for a week. So that's why I proposed that. Now, I'm in an awkward position because I'm also the acting mayor. So were you,
Yeah.
you were, and then back to you. Okay.
well, I think it should be, and I said this earlier when the gentleman was here bringing forth the petition and asking us to write a letter. I said, I have no problem asking the BC government and the teachers union to negotiate and mediate a fair deal. I think it's incumbent on both sides to work together, and that's all I think. So I would add in after.
A point of order. I don't think we've decided to debate it yet.
Oh,
Yeah, we have to do the notice, the waive motion first.
okay.
no, we have two counselors missing now, so.
Well,
Yeah.
Well,
One won't be fully.
so we've had it moved by Councillor Wilson. I did not hear it. Seconded by Councillor Nicholson. The motion requires 2/3 majority of those present. As we are down to 7, that would be 5.
I want to. I think we should wait till Terry's here.
Maybe only fair.
We have a notice that waive.
We have a notice to waive.
Where's the vote coming? Let's get the vote on it.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Terry should have been here, but
Terry should have been here too.
So that's,
Councillor Reid was opposed.
Yes.
and Councillor Asmussen.
Yeah.
Two were opposed.
So we can consider the motion on the floor.
So the motion's on the floor.
Question?
So do we let you speak on it because you moved it, or do you want to speak last?
No, I'll speak, but I'll speak very briefly. We had quite a fulsome discussion this afternoon when the petition was presented to us. It seems clear to me, and I would actually agree with Councillor Asmussen and say that I understand what the petition asked for, but I believe the will of council would be that a letter or 2 letters asking the British Columbia government and the BC Teachers Federation.
yes, that's all I'm asking for. After the government put and BC Teachers Federation too quickly, that's all I'm asking for in the minute.
And in place of the mayor,
Council.
I think council. And then, Mr. Clerk, I presume that you would draft a letter and you would sign it saying council directs? Or
Yes.
something like that?
Generally, what we would do is we would send what we call a resolution letter, and so at its meeting of today's date, council passed the following resolution, and that would generally be signed by myself.
Okay, then, I don't think I have to argue particularly any further in favor of it. It seems clear to me, the question, do we think that the 2 parties should get their heads together and get on with it? Get it resolved, solve the problem of get the kids back in school come September, or maybe even some of them now, and not go through a summer of uncertainty. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, we need to move an amendment.
Unless anyone objects,
My motion, so I kind of amended it on the fly there. Is that?
unless I hear an objection, I can take that as a so-called
Could
friendly
you please
amendment.
read the
And
motion then?
the motion as I have it revised is, on behalf of the City of Coquitlam, that council write a letter asking the BC government and the BC Teachers Federation to quickly negotiate or mediate a fair deal with the hardworking teachers in our province. That's the wording that I heard.
That's what I said.
Councillor Secor?
Thank you very much. You know, again, I also come from a large family, like I said this afternoon. I'm second youngest out of 15 children. And who knows, and my nephews and nieces, relatives and everything else, I may have a lot of school teachers in my family. Who knows? I don't know. So I wished I didn't know, because I'm a great uncle. So, I mean, a lot of nephews and nieces that I've never met in my life, so I don't know. They may be school teachers, who knows? But I'll tell you what, I think the one thing about this is very simple. Both sides are not talking, and I think it's time to get together and got talking. You got really, to really negotiate and bring it to the end of it, because neither side is gaining anything, and it's hurting the economy. Come September, what are they going to do? The kids are ready to go to school. There's no school. This is no school. There's July and August that they could have been negotiating. Without negotiating, get them both in the same room again, nothing will happen. And when nothing happens, it's the worst thing that can ever happen. So those are the things that really need to be brought to forward to where, and I see no reason that I will support this notice of motion. No question about it. Thank you.
Councillor Hyde. Well, yeah, I think, first of all, we've got to get the kids back into school. I think we've got to get everybody back to work. It has an impact on, and it has an economic spin-off into our community as well. The schools are closed. And the other thing is that when the schools are closed, a lot of our community groups use those schools, and those schools are going to be closed during this strike. And I think we've got to get those open. There's community groups that are starting the program in the fall. And there's a lot of uncertainty both around the education side of what's happening in our community, but also in the community at large, both, as I said, through community groups that use those facilities. There's extracurricular program that takes place, after school sports for kids, and so there's a whole range of things that are impacted. And I think the sooner that we get both parties back to the bar, you can get a resolution and you get the kids back in school and the schools open, I think is what we need for this community. So I'll be supporting this.
So I guess I would just ask that the letter captures some of the comments about, the educational
on the community and
community.
No.
I think Jay described the letter.
No, that's just
Council today passed this resolution.
That's right. That's it.
You don't want to put any reasons why.
That would mean a much longer motion to give far more extensive direction to the clerk. And I suspect it would require prolonged debate and probably a failure to find a meeting of minds on language.
Anybody else want to
Different
comment?
needs and nuance.
All those in favor?
My reasons.
Opposed?
Carried unanimously. I will.
You broke it.
We could talk about losing office, but taking the chair.
Your meetings to taking the chair.
Jerry?
Yes, I will take it.
Yes, blow off the handle. Oh, that was better. That's better.
We missed Terry.
And we missed Terry, because he would have come up to blow off the handle. Okay, does anyone else want to weigh in on mining practices or anything else around the province? The motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Second. In favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We'll open the floor to any questions on tonight's agenda. Any questions at all on tonight's agenda? Please, Mr. Trumley, come forward and state your name, Jack Trumley.
How are you, sir? Good to see all of you here. My name is Jack Trumley. I'm at 2314 Sumter Drive in Coquitlam. The question I have, you were talking about these wonderful phallic light columns that you're putting up here. I'm assuming they're not task lighting. It's open lighting to spread everywhere. Is that correct? Sorry. Is the other question I have on the lighting was there an opportunity to supplement with photovoltaic at all on these lightings at all? Do we know? Or would you try? Solar?
It is photovoltaic.
It is photovoltaic?
And you mean activated by darkness?
No,
Well,
not
that's
actually.
photovoltaic.
Actually
Sorry.
powered by
So you mean
solar.
solar powered?
Correct.
Okay.
Was there an option to look at that?
Mr.
Staff?
Giazegi, I assume the top is about this big. Go ahead.
Your Worship, there's always a possibility to look into solar powers for these devices. However, the problem is that because it's generally LED lighting, which has relatively low power requirement, Still, the solar panels will have to be substantially big, and likely they'll have to be placed somewhere else. And also, it would have to come with some battery device or energy storing device, so on darker days it would still work. So we could look at it, but practically I don't think it's going to work out.
Interesting. Well, in fact, if we were to incorporate photo cells, photovoltaic power, solar cells in something, we would probably do it such that it would take power all day and put it into the grid. That would be a much more cost-effective use of the solar panel if it's in a location where we already have power.
Yeah.
Solar panels typically work really well in locations where you don't have power.
Yeah.
And so that allows you to get rid of the fact that it's not very cost-effective.
Hey, Your Worship, I just think we talk about the wow factor. I think that would be something, a great display to demonstrate not only we have a column of light, but it demonstrates that we're actually responsible in terms of our energy levels, too, coming into Coquitlam. Just a thought. The other issues, and the gentleman mentioned that these are fairly high technology things, and I'm assuming if they do break down, they said that we can't fix it, the city can't fix it, they got to bring somebody in from outside to fix it. Is that correct? On these columns, these light columns, the gentleman was talking about if they break or there's maintenance or something goes wrong with them, that the city staff cannot actually fix it themselves. They have to bring in somebody from outside to fix it. Is that correct?
Yes. The city doesn't fix our street lamps or traffic signals either.
So these ones, as a high tech of the area, you'd have somebody else be dependent to fix these things as well.
Have an electrical contractor do that.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
We don't have outdoor electricians with
that would fix that.
Cherry pickers that do that sort of thing. We contract them.
No, not even that. Item 6, I was talking about 763 Miller Avenue, which was originally, I think, a single-family home, is now four houses, I guess, quad or something. Is that correct?
That's housing choice.
With the changes in communities and houses going in and all the things that are happening there with new developments going into these existing neighborhoods, is there a bylaw that we have where a certain percentage of that land has to be open? In other words, if we have a size of a property, only a certain percentage can be used for a dwelling? Is that?
Yes.
So we actually did a variance on this one as well?
No, the site coverage and floor space ratios are the typical planning measures by which we allocate the floor space of a building and the footprint of a building as a percentage of the lot size.
Right. In this case,
for a single family home, there's front yard setbacks, backyard setbacks, and side yard setbacks, such that it ends up being somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% lot coverage. Maximum. 45.
And that's in the case with 763 Miller, I guess. It's 45%. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it makes that bylaw.
Split in 4.
Okay.
So you could typically put a big house or 2 smaller houses or 4 smaller houses.
As long as it meets that criteria of the bylaw percentage.
The housing options was intended to take that total amount of floor space that you're allowed to build.
Yes.
And split it into different units.
Excellent.
Or a monster house.
Or a monster house. Thanks very much. Appreciate that.
4 baby monsters.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions on tonight's agenda? Any questions on tonight's agenda? Any questions on tonight's agenda? Thank you all for coming.